like to introduce myself as somebody that's lived in Timmins most of his life. I've gone through the education system here in Timmins. I went away for college. I graduated as a civil technologist. My career initially started with the Ministry of Transport, and because of reallocation of positions and so on, my staff position was in Toronto, and I did not want to go. Neither did my wife, so we stayed in Timmins. So I found employment with other companies, and over the years, I've done all kinds of construction work pertaining to municipal, institutional, pre-engineered buildings to road construction and so on. That's my background, and I specialized in costing and cost controls and also estimating. Later on in 1978, I started work for the Timmins Housing Authority, which is a Crown agency of the Ministry of Housing, and my position was to develop programs, maintenance programs, and for buildings throughout the district. These are senior buildings and family units, from Chapleau all the way to Mousseline. I feel that a lot of this experience that I've had is something that could be of great value to the city. I have done consulting work after I retired, and pertaining to this, I think a lot of the problems that we have at the city is because we need to have a committee system so we could review contracts, review what we're actually doing. The public does not know, and neither does the council. There's many situations that I've observed with huge awards of contracts by the city in the last 4 years that even the councilmen and women did not know what was there, not even the mayor. And there were a lot of errors, there was no explanation, the public was totally out of the loop in this, and I find that to be a real problem, and there's no reason for it. There's no other municipality of any significant size that I know of that does not have a committee system. That's how decisions are made. This is a $125+ million corporation that the city runs, and it has to have proper governance, and governance also includes committee system. And it's too bad that you know, like, there's almost a war. When you go try to make a presentation in council, which I have a number of times, it is like, I'm the criminal in this, to be able to even have the nerve to ask how this is done and what is it costing. I'm a taxpayer. I have the right. And if I represent a group or whatever, I want those figures. One of the problems I have right now is I'm just embarrassed to be to admit to anybody out of town about what's happening at Porcupine Lake. That's a disaster. Absolute disaster. If you're talking about quality of life in Timmins, that is not a quality of life for people in South Porcupine. I managed a building, and I developed a park across this road from our building at 58 Lakeview, and we get that sewage coming up to that building in our park. People can't use that water or anything else, and that is a city problem. It's been a disaster to what happened there. Council, I know some people on council are even taking credit for this big project that's happened. We are in a real situation, and it's going to cost us a lot of money, because for one thing, we may very well have to go into additional facilities. This facility that they presently built will probably have to be demolished and started all over again. And if all this happens, we will not get funding from the government. The government doesn't pay for it twice. And that's the sad part. But we have to do it. I think as far as next council is concerned, that is a priority in the city. Absolute priority. You know, it's just a shame to even admit it even happened. Especially in the residential areas. Like, let's say, Westmount in Timmins. That's the original road that was put in there 45, 50 years ago. It has never been, should have been shaved and paved years ago to give it a life for the future. That kind of maintenance of assets has been lacking here, and council just fluffs it off, or they're not informed, or they're not interested. I don't know. That's throughout the city. There's only one thing wrong with that pool. It needs renovation. It was built 40-some years ago. So just think of it this way. If your house is 40 years old and you have to redo the bathroom, kitchen, sink, and cupboards, and maybe windows and so on, what do? Do you demolish the house? Or do you invest some money and repair the stuff that has to be repaired in the building? You gotta gut the inside, you've gotta redo things. There's things like you can put bleachers on the west wall. You can put in slides in the where the pool diving area was. You could add on to the building. The building was originally designed to be longer. The building could be extended another 30, 40 feet if we had to. It's there. There's other facilities you could put in for a lot less money. I did a costing on it, and I had it reviewed by a senior estimator, and we both come up pretty close to the figure that we could do probably up to $15 million worth of work, could totally revamp that building. And for at least the next 20 years. Now, why would you build a $40, $50, $60 million facility when you have a good building? You got something to start with. It needs, because of poor maintenance in the past, it needs total revamping. If we get, let's say we get $30 million or $35 million from the two levels of government, do you think they're going to come back the following year and give us another $35 million for a road, or for other facilities, or for a sewage plant that we need in South Porcupine? Not likely. You took your choices. You went for fun and games, or you're going to put in infrastructure that's really needed in the city. We got downloading. We got all kinds of things that the province has downloaded over the years. But just the same, like, you have to work with what you've got. And there's no way you're going to be able to have the city expand or anything else by not having proper infrastructure. Having a downtown with empty stores and a few surface lots that have developed because of burnt out buildings does not solve our problems downtown. And that's what you got to look at. And we can't continue just talking about it. We got to start doing something about it. Stars and Thunder. Well, heck, I think Rock on the River is a pretty good show in town, and very successful. I think if something like Stars and Thunder, if was developed by a non-profit or a group and so on, and done with a good business case, sure, why not? But not to lose money like we've been losing. Like, this is insane. I'm not looking to cut off services. I'm not looking to, but I certainly want to see business cases. I will certainly want to see the, it done properly. Like, this is, something that the whole city would benefit from. How we spend our dollars is important. There have been tremendous waste in operations. Just the sewer operation, the sewage treatment plant operation improved. There's also the road, the 3 kilometers that were done. Did you realize that 3 kilometers, the provincial government had funded it 90%? And what they built there had nothing to do with what they applied for, the money for it. They applied for a standard ministry approved rural 4-lane highway. That's not what they built under the standards of the ministry. The ministry funded it 90%. $3 million, 90%. What did they pay to get it done? $11.5 million. Now, you tell me that is good management. I'll tell you one other thing is that council and the mayor did not know what was happening. There was no report that standards were changed. That's why I'm talking about committee system. At least we'd be able to dig this out by people that know something about it. You're not micromanaging. People think, oh, you're micromanaging. No. You just want to see an overview. What any board would see. If you're in a non-profit, or if you're in in a hospital or whatever, you get some sort of board. You get some sort of consensus of what is being tendered, what is being, costing. What are the costs are going to be? The whole, and what is being done. Just an overview. So then, in a committee, and then you go on to present it to the board, because it has to be approved. The final dollar figure has to be approved. So you have to have some sort of an idea what you're approving, and it's normally the committee that reports to the board. And if there's any questions, you still have staff there to help out. But generally speaking, it's the committee chair that reports it to the board and asks for approval. Now, every company does that. I've been on non-profits, we've done it all the time. That's nothing yet. That's what's called, proper format. Hopefully we have people that are elected that have some more wide range of responsibility or skills, and that helps them. But, otherwise, how else would you take, what's happening responsible? If you don't know how a budget operates and you pass it, you're not doing anybody any favors. First of all, it's way too long. It has no business case. They're suggesting they do a business case now. Even councillors last night, for instance, they suggested, well, 2 years too late to start off with. It was not something that the public even voted for in a previous election. It was rammed through with no business case or whatever. It's unfortunate that it had to go that way. We lost $2 million. I feel they lost a lot more than that. For a simple reason is I don't think there's a lot of costing that have been, until they do a forensic audit on it, there's no way we know what they do. I think there's a lot of staff hours that were put in that were not charged. I've seen tons of equipment there and so on that I'd love to see how they were charged on the books. I know during a period of time it was difficult to get things done at City Hall, and shortly after it was difficult because staff started taking holidays, things like this. I think what has been mentioned, that it should go as a non-profit with a business case, I think the city could help out. We can obviously, the city could obviously would have the site available. I think there could be seed money, but certainly not millions of dollars, and the city shouldn't be running it. The staff at the city shouldn't be running it. Why would all the accounting and everything else, how much does that cost to the city? And on top of that, when you have politicians running a concert, come on, with city money, you begin to wonder, So, do we do it? If it's feasible, yes. The sad part is that both provincial and federal government have got out of the housing business about 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was. And it's very difficult for a municipality to get into any kind of real housing. Now they got the similar problem throughout Ontario. And until some money comes in for the system, it makes it very difficult. About 8 to 10 years ago, they had a program, federal provincial, for senior housing. And right now, there's a 2-year waiting list. Now, I was familiar with that 10 years ago when the program came in, because I have an apartment building with a partner that is a seniors building. And it was under that program, and it was a very good program. Now, if that program was initiated for the city to do under a non-profit situation, because that's the way you have to go, I think it's viable. Now, until they do it, it's not very viable for the city to do it. It's too bad. Like the DSAT can't afford it. The city can't afford it. You can't build something and create a huge debt when the federal, provincial government doesn't want to do it. How does the city do it? We're the lower tier. We have no taxing ability. I think right now they're talking about federally, provincially of doing it. Hopefully they do it quickly. And, you know, because it's a crisis all over the place. It's not just City of Timmins. Now, when you're talking about homelessness and so on, well, we had homelessness, you know, even when I was in the housing. We made an effort to house people, but it was a little easier then because it wasn't such a shortage of housing. How do we, potential of taking over older homes, converting them, that's a potential. I know there's houses that have sold in Schumacher for $1,000. Now, maybe the city could take something like that and do something with it. Or a group can, you know, with some seed money. There's funding available for that as well. Now, that's one way of looking at it. When we have a home that is in, you know, that's been given up for taxes and so on, maybe something could be done there. You better realize that the city has a limited mandate. Housing and welfare and social services and so on fall under the DSAT, which is not directly run by the city. It's a separate organization. Now, they're limited in funds for what they get from the city. Well, we're already heavily, 20% or so of our money paid to taxes already goes to DSAT. Now, how much more could we handle? And, you know, those situations are a difficult thing to do. I think we have to make solutions. We can't put them on the back burner. You know, like to give you an idea, we had a KMPG report. It showed $7 million worth of savings in the city. That was 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago. Nothing was implemented. And if there was anything implemented, it was peanuts. You know, in savings. Yet I'm sure 50% of that could have been implemented. Now, if 50% of that was implemented, that would have been $7.5 million that the city would have had towards even possibly homelessness. You know, when you look at this type of, you know, straightforward solutions, we have to look at this. You know, you can't have, you know, everybody have their own little counselor and say, no, you can't touch this, you can't touch that. Everything has to be looked at. And everything has to be in common sense. We're past, you know, one of our problems is dropping population, so our debt goes up per capita. You know, like things like this, we're not going to be able to solve them by just putting it on the back burner. Decisions are not being made, and those have to be made, and they have to be with some economic, you know, reasoning. And let's get business back, the city business back to city business. And let's do the simple things right. That's my, you know, my wanting to do. It's not holding it back. I want to see the city expand. I want to see the downtown expand. I want to see kids having more options, and let it be in sports, whatever it is. I want to see, you know, if we could have a concert every month, that'd be great. But let's make some sense out of it. Let's make some kind of plan for it. Some kind of, you know, not all of a sudden pull it out of the hat. But I also have a good understanding of, you know, budgets. I have good understanding of asset management. Let it be at all levels of, you know, operation and so on. You know, like these things are, you have to have a council chambers. I hope to be able to, you know, to help council with that comment, you know, that area of expertise. Not everybody gets that area, you know, and it's nice to be able to share this with council, share that with you know, and I think that's the biggest part. I hope that people realize that you know, that there's more to an operation of the city than just councilmen meeting every second week and so on, and voting on passing. It is a business of $125 million. or more. There's all kinds of responsibilities that councillors have under the Municipal Act. And unfortunately, you have to do your homework. And I'm one of the type of person that does his homework. I never went into any kind of a meeting without doing my homework. And I plan to continue to do that. Now, I've always helped anybody that asked me for assistance. I've always, you know, helped them if they needed it and wanted it. I'm not going to push myself into, you know, on anybody or anything else. But I know the process, especially when it comes to working with government. I've worked with the city of Timmins, all kinds of situations for buildings and so on. For years, I know what the process is. For a simple reason is I worked the process, and that's the difference.